That would not have been possible if the film had been shot using stop-motion miniatures. In Bill Warren's Keep Watching the Skies, which is the only book you need on 1950s science fiction, he writes, "The huge ant models built by studio technician Dick Smith, not the later makeup artist, were designed to be filmed in color. According to Steve Rubin of Cinefantastique, 2 full-size ants were constructed, which could be operated from behind by levers and pulleys. They were painted a purplish green, and their bulging eyes seemed red and blue, all of which is lost in black and white. A couple of other ant heads and forequarters were built, but those seen at the end were simply loose couplets, whose heads were tossed around by wind machines. We can only imagine what the effect would have been like seeing those large props three-dimensionally, had the budget not been cut. Nevertheless, there are shots in them that are clearly staged for 3D. The depth of focus in these sequences would have looked pretty spectacular to moviegoers wearing their colored glasses, especially the descent into the underground ant's nest. However, the downgrading helped the production in other ways. Now, the black and white photography actually complements the dragnet-like tone of the film. Of Dunn's lack of color, Warren writes, "The picture probably also benefited from being in black and white. Warner color at this time tended to be rather garish, and the use of the monochrome distinctly helped the documentary aspects of the picture. It's doubtful the spooky scenes in the gas-filled ant nest or the sequences of Jeeves roaring around in the storm drains would have been as effective in color as they are in black and white. It's contradictory to logic, but black and white made films seem more real. And since realism is striven for throughout them, the picture becomes more convincing because it's not in color." Now, beyond its story and special effects, the film benefits from a solid cast. James Whitmore plays Sergeant Ben Peterson, who is the emotional heart of the movie. Whitmore was a native of New York who would later serve in the United States Marines. He was a member of the famed Actors Studio in New York and had an extensive theater career that included Broadway. His first major film was 1949's Battleground, for which he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, he appeared on several classic television shows, including The Twilight Zone. In later years, he was seen in 1994's The Shawshank Redemption, and in the world of television commercials, he was instantly recognizable to gardeners around the world as the spokesman for Miracle Grow. Now, Edmund Gwenn plays Professor Medford in this film, bringing humor and, more importantly, a sense of authority to his character, who formulates a theory about the strange occurrences in the desert. Gwenn is best known to audiences as Chris Kringle in Miracle on 34th Street. He was an English-born actor whose stage career began in 1895. He appeared in many plays by George Bernard Shaw before serving in World War I. When he settled in Hollywood, he became a character actor in dozens of films. After them, he made only 2 more films before his death, one of which was Hitchcock's The Trouble with Harry. Joan Weldon plays Medford's daughter, Pat. Weldon was a singer from San Francisco. She would later have a short career in television before resuming her singing career. But she found her immortality as the woman in the desert who screams at the first sighting of the ant. She's been retired since 1980. Of her experience on the film, Joan told author Tom Weaver, even Gordon Douglas didn't take it seriously when he was first assigned to it. He said at one point that they should get Martin Lewis to star in the film. He wasn't quite sure what he was doing. Nobody really knew. I had no problems with Gordon Douglas, but he related better, I think, to the men. Edmund Gwenn was a doll, an absolutely lovely man, very private, and he was in great pain. He was riddled with arthritis, but when they said camera, action, you'd never know that there was a thing wrong with him. And the moment they said cut, he just crumbled. His manservant, Ernest, would come on the set and help him off. James Arness as FBI agent Robert Graham Of course, Arness is most famous as Marshal Matt Dillon on Gunsmoke, a role he played for 20 years. He was the younger brother of Peter Graves. Arness was born in Minnesota, and like Whitmore, he served in World War II. He earned a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart among his decorations. Though he's most famous for appearing in westerns, some with his friend John Wayne, sci-fi fans will know him as The Thing, 1951's The Thing from Another World. Also in the cast is Fess Parker as the Texas patient in the mental ward with a story about flying ants. Reportedly, when Walt Disney saw this film, he immediately offered the role of television's Davy Crockett to Parker. William Scheller, who was a mainstay in 1950 science fiction films, appears early as an ambulance attendant. And look fast for Leonard Nimoy in an early role as an Air Force sergeant. And finally, I'd like to make a special mention of an actor who is our only connection to next week's film, The Blob. The actor who plays the old alcoholic in the LA hospital ward, Olin Howland, is also the first character to discover the meteorite, The Blob. Howland, who was born in Colorado in 1886, had an amazing career that went back to the early 20th century when he appeared on the Broadway stage. From 1918 to 1958, he appeared in 200 films, including small roles in films such as Gone with the Wind. Now, along with The Day the Earth Stood Still, The Thing, and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Them is considered one of the best science fiction films of the 1950s. It spawned many takeoffs and variations, such as Tarantula, The Deadly Mantis, and The Black Scorpion. It would become a major influence on latter-day science fiction films, most notably Aliens, 1986. And as we've already seen, it's become a huge influence on movie fans like us, including artists and model makers such as Paul. Now, of course, if they remade them today, every action sequence would go on for about 30 minutes. That's because modern Hollywood gets caught up in the concepts and the visual excesses, and they lose sight of the execution, how to tell a story simply and intelligently. Them is an exercise in storytelling economy. As for its effects, yes, maybe the ants don't move the way real ants would move, but it doesn't stop you from getting caught up in the drama that Them delivers. It was made in an era when things seemed simpler, and kids could be frightened by giant atomic ants. In this postmodern generation of ours, kids have become desensitized by violence, with whole cities blowing up on movie screens. But when one of the main characters in Them dies, you feel something emotional. You care about these characters, and that's what separates them from those imitations. Thank you.
Hey, Doc.